Hi story lovers, my name is Ndakonja Osiko and welcome to Storytellers. My intention with this platform is to share my stories and those of others in hopes that it will inspire you or you can learn a thing or two. As you will know, stories never take a linear approach. They are full of ups and downs, twists and turns, and this platform will emulate the same. In the sense that today could be a sit down, just me talking, tomorrow it could be a vlog, the other day it could be a podcast, so you'll never know what to really expect. So as it says in the title below, my objective with this video is to share my 4 major lessons from hosting Purposeful Camp Namibia. But before we even get into the lessons, I'd love to take you into what Purposeful Camp Namibia and how this whole thing came about. Alright, so the PCN founding story went a little bit like this. So I remember the exact same date, it was on the 8th of June 2019. I was on campus during the early morning hours around about 2 to 3 a.m.-ish. I was supposed to be studying but I wasn't. And when this idea hit me literally like a lightning strike, and the idea was plain and simple, is to create a platform for young people where we could come together and learn from one another. But not just any kind of a platform, but one thing I really wanted to do is to create an experience for a lifetime. And that's why I was so particular about, going out camping and going on what would later then be called the ultimate purposeful experience. So within the early morning hours, I opened up a WhatsApp group where I then added my co-founders, my 3 co-founders, Jane Hango, Tulika Andres, and Paulina Ambata. And I bombarded them with a 10-minute long voice note, just selling them on the idea, telling them on how we're literally going to go about creating this ultimate purposeful experience. And they agreed. So on the 12th of June, we came together. We had our first meeting in Independence Avenue by Kremers. So we met there for our first meeting, and ever since then, as they say, the rest is history. So for 2019, we pulled off our first camp at NWR Waterberg Resort. In 2020, it was at Midgard Country Estate. In 2021, it was at Ngondwana Tosha Safari Camp. So those were our 3 annual youth camps. And then the other 2 were in partnership with Unam Ednast. So we hosted those sponsored by B2 Gold. So they have an education center on the mine, and that's where those 2 take place. So, and for the 3rd one, it was a student entrepreneurship bootcamp that we hosted at Moonreka. Moonreka is also a property currently under Gondwana Collection, but it's actually a private farm owned by Mr. Mani Goldberg, who's the founder of Gondwana. So the first lesson is titled Everything is People. And the reason why I say everything is people is that it's through PCN that I've gotten to realize the importance of the team. Because as much as I was the founder or the chairperson, I would have never been able to pull it off or deliver the level of impact that we did.
My grandmother always said that whenever you're thankful to someone, you should always tell that person to their face. And today, I would really like to thank Ndakonja for the experience, the transformation. I have never stood in front of a whole crowd and spoke to my heart and never ever gave my whole entire heart to a place. I really like to thank you for the to Paulina Habatata, you inspire me in many ways, although you didn't know, because I have told you this one time, and I know.
If it wasn't for the amazing team that I had, and not just necessarily the co-founding team that I mentioned earlier, but also just the amazing staff team that we had that was very hands-on when it came to the camps. And also the other amazing thing of having such a diverse team is that, people get to connect with the different personalities that came to the camps. And not everything was just expected from us, the 4 main founders, but the people were able to also learn and engage from the other staff team members that we had. And the other reason why I say everything is people is that I've also just got to realize that at the core of we human beings are, the one need that we long for is just, human beings just want to be cared for. And it's something that I said in the introduction video when I said, how we started off our camps was usually we starting off with a session titled My Life Story, and through that we got to share our different life stories. And it's through that, and I believe that was probably also that was probably a crucial point to the success of the camps that we hosted, because at the end of the day, the 4 main lectures that we gave on which were personal development, leadership, public speaking, entrepreneurship. This was information that you could, readily learn from the internet. But what My Life Story did for the ultimate purposeful experience, it was able to provide a safe space whereby, people could open up on who they really were and not be able, to hide under these masks of facades that we put up on a daily basis. And the other reason why I really also get to say everything is people is that even when it comes to pitching or selling a new idea, and especially when it's something new and you don't have past experience of having it done. And, especially when it comes to pitching, especially when it comes to pitching to these major corporations, one thing I've gotten to realize is that at the end of the day, behind these F&Bs and the old mutuals and all these mega corporations is that they are just a collection of people. And when it comes to pitching something or you're presenting something forth, it's really all a matter of how you're gonna be able to make it people-centric. And by making it people-centric, it's just by making sure that people are at the core. People are at the core of what you're doing, and it's through that you're gonna be able to get buy-in, or it's how you're gonna be able to connect with the right manager who's gonna be able to come through that sponsorship check.
Leadership is what?
Influence.
Nothing more?
Nothing less.
Let's say it. Someone say it. Leadership is what?
Influence. Nothing more, nothing less.
And if you cannot influence people, will they follow you? Ne? How do we influence people? Ne? In leadership, we have, I'm just going to say this. We have the high, the people that are in authority. For your case is now the teachers and maybe the parents, whoever is head high. Ne? To influence these people that are on top of you, what do you need to do? Who can tell me?
Lesson number 2, it's never going to turn out as planned, ... And the reason why I say ... it's because, the full sentence finishes off as, it's never going to turn out as planned, but rather everything is going to happen the way it was meant to be. And here's the one thing that I've really gotten to realize, even just not from PCM, but as well as from my other ventures that I've undertaken in the past, is that the plan should just serve as the guide, and what you should necessarily have is just have a true north. Have a true north and a sense of direction in which you are aimed to go at, but the path in which you set on to achieve that true north should be quite flexible in how you're going to go about it, because trust me, things are never going to turn out as planned. And I think for the first case scenario that I'll even just like to share is when we're hosting our first camp, and it's because we had this, we thought into such a brilliant idea in our minds. We thought, for the first camp, we're going to be able to have like 3,000 applications. Quickly learned it the hard way that things don't go out as planned, because we didn't even make up half of the applications that we initially targeted for. And the second case scenario that also really just taught me this hard lesson, and this was literally a hard pill to swallow, it was the student entrepreneurship bootcamp that we hosted at Moonraker. So for context, when we're hosting these camps, we roughly we're looking at 40 to 50 people, but in this case scenario, we literally just had 8 people, like 8. And that was such a tough pill for me to swallow, because again, things didn't go out as planned. Most of my team couldn't make it. We're just 2 facilitators, Matthew and I, and then the other 5 were the participants, and then the one was the filmmaker. But one thing that I've got to realize, as soon as we got to the camp, was just that everyone who was meant to be there was there, and I wouldn't have wished it for it to have turned out any other way. And as part of things not turning out as they were planned for, is just in being comfortable with the execution, and also just trusting yourself that you're gonna be able to figure it out along the way.
Your relationships, your school, whatever it is, will never be okay unless you're fine. So you need to work on yourself first. Like, you can't succeed in anything if you're not 100%. How do you expect to give your job, your friends, and everything 100%, right? So keep that in mind as well. Always be 100% yourself, and then you give it all.
So if there's one thing I would love you to take away from everything that has been said in this video, is the third lesson, which is the power of delusion. As the kid says nowadays, being delulu is a salulu. I think Purposeful Camp was really built off that stance. It's because I believe it was the power of delusion that was really built off on everything that Purposeful Camp is. Because number one, in 2019, when we're starting this off, we're just a bunch of 18-year-olds, but we're delusional enough to think that, we're going to be able to, number one, influence, other young people in joining us on this ultimate purposeful experience. And number two, well, that we're also going to be able to have, buy-in, not just from the young people, but also from their parents and also the different corporations that we're able to come on board as sponsors. And the other thing about the power of delusion is also just being able to sit in discomfort. It's because as much as, especially for the first time, when we're starting off, with the first camp, as much as we're confident about that we're going to be able to pull it off, there were a little creeps of self-doubt on how we're going to be able to do so. But I think, the ability to sit in discomfort and just push forward, push forward no matter what the circumstances is what eventually leads you to the success that you desire. And I think the case scenario that I really just want to share about the power of delusion is, in the second, was the second camp that we hosted. And this was really quite a difficult one for us to pull off, because everything about that year was just literally set up to be in a way, because it was in 2020, in the height of the pandemic, and everything that we literally did and everything that we're dependent on was what COVID was literally setting up against us. Number one, it's the traveling, so the uncertainty of the lockdowns. Number two is it's bringing people together and the whole social distancing stance. And number three was also just that most of our funding came from the corporates, and that quite particular year, the corporates were closing off their funding taps, because the economy took a tank where they're literally trying to recoup off every single cent. But one thing where the power of delusion really came in for us is that at times luck really comes through your way. It really comes through when you're being delusional. And how it came about in this particular instance was how we were able to get the presidency, the office of the president, on board. And in this particular way, it came in what we can only say as in God's grace, right? So when we first reached out to the office of the president, the first initially idea was just, what we requested from them was just, notebooks, lanyards, or any form of stationery, because we just thought it was going to be cute and cool to have, stationery branded, office of the president in our camp. But one thing they really did for us is that, they went over and above. So they ended up asking what were our three major needs. And at the time, our three major expenses were really accommodation, food, and transport. So they were then going to choose one on which they were going to be able to fund for. And I'll never forget the moment that we got the call back. Because I remember I was with three buddies of mine, David and John, and we were walking from home. We were on our way to Hockland Park when I got the call. And the lady literally said, they were going to choose to take up funding for accommodation, right? And for context, you need to understand that, these guys don't have a sponsorship budget, on the side on which they get to sponsor youth initiatives. And this doesn't mean that you should, go on and shoot your shots. But, for us, they ended up coming through with the accommodation. And just for context, it was more than 20,000 Namibian dollars. And that's where I really just got to see the power of, number one, shooting your shot and just seeing where it will land. And again, it's also just being delusional and never knowing when luck is going to come through your way. And as part of that, I really also just accord it to, God's grace. Because, the moment that call came in, I remember the first thing I did was I just looked up to the sky and I was like, damn, this could only literally be you. So I said, whatever you're doing, it may sound, unreasonable, but that thing that you really want to do, but you're a bit afraid of and you're holding it back because you think it's going to be a bit delusional. I would rather say charge ahead for it, be delusional. The one thing about these paths is that you only need to be right once. And the moment you're right once, it's gates, man. It takes off from there. So lesson number 4, the beauty of ideas. And the reason why I say the beauty of ideas is that, most of the time when we're working on these ideas and we're working on these products or literally any project that we set on to do, is that most of the times that, we think that, the project or the thing we're working on is the product that you're doing. But one thing that I've gotten to realize, and especially PCN really got to show me, is that at times, and probably most of the times, is that, the product that is also being created and shaped is also you, right? And what I mean by that is the person that you become, the person that you come in this journey that you get to charge forth. It's because on the various journeys that you go on, so much growth is really required from you, and you're no longer the person that you were before you started out with this thing. And I think for me, that has really been the beauty of ideas. It's because, best believe, the younger version of me doesn't know the version that I am. And I will literally accord it to, it's because of, the person that I became through these different journeys, and through these different projects that I've got on, who literally shaped me into becoming the person that I am. And another thing I would say about the beauty of ideas is that, you never really know where it will take you. And the one thing about an idea is that, you might be the one who starts off with it, but you meet amazing other people who later come on board and just, add on and contribute onto that. And the case scenario that I bring forth this time around is with our SRC retreat. I could never take credit that, that was my idea and, it was our thing that we started off. because how that came about was, so when we reached Gondwana for us, for them to be our partner for our third camp, they raised the concern to us on how they usually have, interns who are coming in, from the tourism space, and they're never usually well articulated. So what we then did was we partnered up with NAST and we hosted a public speaking workshop for their tourism students, and in attendance at the time were always also the SRCs, and it was the SRC president, shout out to Pamela.
Hello, Nasle Sashi President Pamela Herze. I would just like to give a brief feedback on how the weekend was from Friday.
Our SIC retreat went very, very, very well. We got to make new friends, and yeah, it was just like an experience of a lifetime.
Which was full of excitement, full of joy, love, and growth and development.
The retreat was awesome. We actually learned a lot. I didn't expect to learn a lot from this experience.
It's an informative and an intense and an interactive weekend.
Who after the session who came forth and be like, yo, these camps that you guys get to do, how about we do, a collaborative one whereby we have, the NAST SOCs and the UNAM SOCs and every other SOCs from the other universities. Idea was presented to us, we took it up, and it's through that we're then able to partner with these two main institutions, and then we're able to get, B2 Gold to come on board as our main partner, who was able to sponsor for most part of the camp. And this is really just a testament to when I say, with ideas, you never really know where it's going to take you. You never really know the person that you become at the end of the day. So that's it, guys. Those are my 4 major lessons from Purposeful Camp. This was really just what I was able to boil down and condense down. It's because if I was to share everything that I've learned, this will definitely turn out to be a video series, because one thing, it has really been an enriching and transformative journey. And my hope with this video is that it really just gives you that extra boost of fuel, so you can go out and create your own version of what PCN is. And that really is just, go out there, be delusional, be unreasonable, and don't fall into the realms of what is deemed as realistic. Because out of all the words in the English vocabulary, that's the one word I don't like realistic. Because once upon a time, spaceships only had rockets that could go once, but now due to SpaceX and Elon Musk, we have rockets that are able to go up and then come back again, but once upon a time that wasn't deemed as what? Realistic. So go out there, create your own reality, because trust me, if it's something that's up here, then you can literally forge it into the world that exists within us. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you learned a thing or two, perhaps you can consider sharing it with your friend if you think they are also going to be able to take something out of it. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.